Everybody's going on about Dragon Ball Z, but what about Dragon Ball? The original, the Genesis, the humble beginnings. Dragon Ball is a manga, or Japanese comic, illustrated and written by writer and creator Akira Toriyama for the Jump Comics. It's part of the reason why manga was in its golden age in the 80s, or at least one of the various reasons. Dragon Ball is a story about a character named Son Goku who goes on adventures with his friends. The very first of which is whenever Bulma discovers him after hitting him with his car. Now these two are a very interesting duo, as they're the first of many to start these adventures in the world of Dragon Ball. Starting with the fact that Goku is naive, a kid, and very humble, while Bulma's kind of self-centered, moody. The first saga, which is the Pilaf saga, was the only saga that was supposed to be in Dragon Ball. After that, that's whenever everything was supposed to end, and more or less, Dragon Ball was only supposed to last about a year, believe it or not. Now, the Pilaf saga may have started everything, and really it was adventure-wise, but the Dragon Ball series has started off as a gag manga, for sorts, as the writer, Akira Toriyama, had just gotten off of writing Dr. Slump. Now, in the anime, the Pilaf saga starts off very slowly, and it takes a few episodes to actually get invested in the characters and the anime. There's very good comedy and even a couple of action scenes, but for the most part, like, the Pilaf saga doesn't exactly impress a whole lot. There's various comedy moments, and even the finale, the climax of the Pilaf saga is extremely hilarious, but really nothing that really sticks with you, as while the characters, majority of them, mainly Bulma and Oolong, have character traits that shine, Goku didn't exactly have too much of a personality in this series, as he was kind of just two-dimensional and bland, believe it or not. It wasn't until the second saga, which was the 21st Tenkaichi Tournament saga, that his character started shining more, as he was determined to become the best and become the champion of the Tenkaichi tournament that was upcoming. There we get introduced to Krillin and Master Roshi, and the action actually gets amped up. The comedy's good, the pacing's still a little slow, but for the most part, the 21st Tenkaichi tournament was actually very entertaining, and the very first shining moment of Dragon Ball. Now, the Red Ribbon Army arc is where everything starts getting extremely interesting. Goku is on his way to look for the 4-star Dragon Ball because it's the only thing that he has to remember his grandpa Gohan by, who died in mysterious circumstances years earlier. He goes there, but then the army, the Red Ribbon Army to be exact, is now looking for the Dragon Balls, so that way General Red, the leader of the Red Ribbon Army, can get his wish, which, not to spoil anything here, is extremely hilarious what his actual wish is. If you think world domination is it, well, that's not exactly what it turns out to be. The story of Dragon Ball takes the viewer across the world, all around the world, whether it's snowy, grass, or just the desert. It's not exactly region specific, and that's why Dragon Ball is probably one of the easier animes to localize for that reason, and why English audiences have grown to love it over the years. Because it's not exactly Japan, it's not exactly American, it can be anything, it's its own fantasy universe. Which I highly applaud Akira Toriyama for that. The writing is very good. When you think something's going to happen, the exact opposite happens, such as General Red's real desire for wanting the Dragon Balls, or even the climax of the King Piccolo saga. It's not exactly what you think it is, and it always keeps me guessing. That is because Akira Toriyama always likes to portray the expectations of the fans and keep them on the loop, keep them in the unknown, which is another good trait. Writing-wise, it keeps me excited to see what happens next. When I was a kid, I did watch this in English dub, but I watch it in Japanese dub now because of the censorship that was in the English dub at the time. They don't exactly curse, and some of the perverted jokes get covered up by saying something completely different in the dub lines. So for this review, I watched the Japanese dub so that way I could get a better grasp of what the original creator had in mind. I gotta say, okay, the slight dub changes were needed. In the English dub, Goku is portrayed as a hero, but in the Japanese dub, it just happens that he takes out the bad guy needed because they're in the way of a goal that he wants to achieve, not because it's the right thing to do, which in the long run I think gives Goku a better characterization and more interesting characterization at that, because he's not exactly a hero. He's just someone that happens to stop the bad guys whenever he's trying to achieve a goal of his. In the past, I've never exactly been a fan of the Japanese scores for either Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball, but now that I'm older, I can sort of appreciate it a little bit more. There's some soundtrack pieces from the original Dragon Ball that are actually worth listening to and help give this atmosphere to the series. So while it may not be very good in terms of battle music, it is good for setting up and hyping up an entire universe, and in some cases, world building. Now, to me, the standout material is the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai Tournament, all the way to the Piccolo Jr. saga. Those last 3 arcs in Dragon Ball are some of the most memorable arcs in the entire series, and have some of the best fighting choreography and animation in the entire series. The art style throughout the entire series as a whole is very strong, but the fights were never really that good until, say, maybe the Red Ribbon Army arc. That's whenever I think the animation production was really stepped up from late 70s to maybe late 70s animation production to early 90s animation production. It was really a few years ahead of its time, and I think that the fights are rather exciting because of that. And the story got more interesting over time as well, despite the fact that Toriyama really just wanted to keep it as a gag comic. And he was getting too much support at the time, and his editor was also pressuring him to change up the story to what he felt like. Despite the fact that the editor wanted it this way, I think it was probably for the best, despite the fact that Toriyama's creative visions were kind of being tampered with. It still came out with some iconic and very interesting stories and character moments, and not to mention fights, battles, and various techniques. Now, despite me applauding Toriyama and his writing, I will say that the story's simplicity works much to his strengths. But to be honest, I do have some problems with this anime. The very slow pacing throughout the entire series and me having to skip throughout the filler so that way I can get to the point of the story is very mind-numbing. I really wish that they did like a Dragon Ball Kai version like they did with Dragon Ball Z Kai, but that's just me. Like the pacing and the repeating of characters' names, it just got tedious and annoying after a while. The soundtrack is alright. I'll give the soundtrack a pass this one time. I really do like the fact that the fights were upped over time. But other than pacing and occasional script repetition, Dragon Ball is a very solid story. I don't blame the script repetition on the creator, Akira Toriyama. I blame it more on the anime staff for just doing the script repetition for filler purposes. Dragon Ball is a very good story. It's simple, and it doesn't exactly have too many continuity errors or plot holes like its sequel, Dragon Ball Z. It's also not as filler ridden either. It's very easy to pick up. If you want to watch the dub, go and watch the dub or sub. If you want the full-on faithfulness, you're better off watching the subs. But if you want to watch it, the dub is pretty much the same. Just remember that Goku is not a hero. The final verdict for Dragon Ball, for me, is a 9 out of 10. It's a very good story, and it doesn't try to be too complex or anything. It's just about a kid that goes on adventures with his friends, and he makes even more friends on the way. Lena Mars of the MMC Productions crew. See you next time.